Hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. I, of course, am the maestro, Mr. Warren Hayes, welcoming you to once again more pro wrestling talk that's happening right here on youtube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes or on your favorite podcast application. Look, I don't mind whichever way you use to get me into your consciousness. Whatever way you decide to do it, it's fine. Thank you so much. And in return, I'd be like, well, if you want to leave a like if you're watching this on YouTube, or a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, or a 5-star rating on Spotify, that'll be tremendous. If you want, I'd appreciate it a great deal. And I'm sure you're going to appreciate this show. Maybe you'll appreciate to the point that you'd like to join the Mr. Warren Hayes Show Discord, where you'd like to continue talking about pro wrestling and stuff. A link is in the description for that. Maybe you just want to come yell at me for whatever reason gratuitously. Well, I'm on Blue Sky at MrWarrenHayes.show, so you can find me there. So let's just get into the show. Tonight, we'll be talking a lot about releases and departures from wrestling companies. AEW has some, WWE has some as well. And, just for clarity's sake, I recorded this segment on stream on Monday. So, there's certain people who have since showed up on another show that obviously hadn't happened when I recorded it. So, you might have to want to bear with me on that one because it was pre-recorded. But, the rest is still really good. And the analysis is still great. Don't get me wrong. It's all really good. So we're going to be talking about that and a review of New Japan Pro Wrestling's The New Beginning in Osaka. Spoiler alert, great show. And a great review. If you want to get reinvigorated by pro wrestling again, this is it. This is the one for you. So there you go. Busy show. Got a lot to talk about. Let's get to it. Thank you very much for being here. Let's start by talking about releases, about departures, but not only from World Wrestling Entertainment, but from All Elite Wrestling as well. We have a bunch of people who left. Let me see here. Let's pull up the list. I know the list is on this article here. Ignore the article for now. But the full list of people, let's start with WWE. The list of people that have been that are gone, that have been moved to the alumni section on WWE.com are Cedric Alexander, Sonya Deville, The Authors of Pain, Paul Ellering, Blair Davenport, Carl Anderson, Luke Gallows, Isla Dawn, and Elektra Lopez. So all these people were all released, I believe, most of them, I should say, were released on Friday. A couple of stragglers, I believe, or at least were announced over the weekend, but it was towards the end of last week, which is interesting because last week on the stream we talked about Duke Hudson getting released, and apparently he had been released since January. Yes, and Giovanni Vinci. That's right. It's nonetheless a pretty exhaustive list of people who have departed. And we did mention, we mentioned everyone. I think the list was pretty thorough, except for Giovanni Vinci. That's the only one that was maybe. Look, it doesn't matter. It's fine. I think this is something that we're going to be seeing a little more about. That we're going to see a little more of as things continue to progress with WWE. Look, we've already seen it happen, right? And we're going to see this more and more is what I'm trying to say. We're probably going to see this a couple of times a year, maybe coinciding with, quarters or whatever, maybe twice a year, where out of nowhere, they're just going to cut people because they've got so many people in their pipeline right now that they're just going to get, they're just going to get rid of the talents that they have truly nothing for, or that they have no interest in. And the same goes for the people in NXT, where it's like, between the NIL program, between the NIL program, the WWE ID program, and just picking up people off the indies or whatever, they've got a really strong influx of talent where it's like, if you don't stand apart, if you don't come across as someone that they can use or that they are interested in using, you're going to get cut. You're going to get flushed, and no one's going to bat an eye. I think, all of these, and I want everyone to make sure that I want to make sure that I measure what I'm saying here. I want to make sure that everyone understands that I'm not trying to sound callous when I say all of these releases make sense. There's maybe one in here that is a little weird, that I don't quite understand, but all of them make sense. And not in the sense that they're untalented, that they stink, nothing like that. These are people, a lot of these talents, a lot of these releases make sense because WWE wasn't doing anything with them regardless. So there's a lot of them where it's just like, well, okay, they're cutting losses. They're just saying, look, in the near immediate future, we do not require your services. Hit the bricks. That makes sense to do, right? It's not as surprising. I don't think there's anyone as surprising as a Baron Corbin, though. Whereas Corbin, I think everyone was sort of shocked because everyone fully expected that guy to have a job for life in WWE, that he would 100% be a lifer, right? But it's not the case. It's not the case. And I think that it's an interesting message to be sent that even if you're a mid-carder and your uses have been limited, despite the fact of you having been used a lot, everyone's sort of put on notice. I think that, in retrospect, when you think about it, WWE firing Baron Corbin is a message to say no one is safe here. No one has a cushy job for life. This is not Vince's WWE anymore, where it's like, yeah, I'll take care of you kind of thing. It's just something completely foreign, completely different. So again, like not to sound completely callous, it's like they make sense. Okay. These releases all kind of make sense. And again, like I said, they're part of this talent strategy that WWE has right now, where they want to be able to, rotate people in and out of the company. They have such a strong pipeline of talent. They'll never be want for developmental talent or just ready to go talent. They'll never be on. They never will be. So it's just a question of, well, how much money can we put in this, right? So let's talk about these. I guess we'll go over each one individually. Cedric Alexander announced that he was no longer with the WWE. He announced this on February 7. In a social media post Friday, the former WWE Cruiserweight Classic standout and former Cruiserweight champion himself revealed that he was no longer with the company and will be free to work elsewhere in 90 days. The 90-day reference indicates that this was a release or a negotiated buyout and not a contract expiry. So Cedric was released, and he was always a fantastic wrestler, and he was one of the cornerstones of 205 Live. He was absolutely phenomenal. And I think he had a great spot in the Hurt business. When that was around, I think that was a tremendous pairing. Of course, that all came apart because reasons. And the look, I don't know, like they even tried their best, right? They tried their best to make something where they put him in a tag team with Tahuti Miles, right? And or whatever it's not Tahuti Miles. Anyway, it doesn't matter. That's how I remember his name. They never really did anything with that, did they? It just sort of meandered, right? So it's all kind of I think it's an unfortunate set of circumstances. I think Cedric is a tremendous talent and he's very, very good. I mean, I think he's got, he's still got some mileage This guy's not out of the way yet, right? Sonya Deville was also released. Now, this is the one that I found a little weird. I found it a little weird because she was actually on TV. She's part of this faction with Shayna Baszler, and I'm like, isn't this interesting? Like, isn't this interesting? And was it? And then it was. I think I saw on social media that she had been doing like promos, like going to TV and doing promotional work for WWE the day before being fired. Like, holy crap, man. You know, and she's had a good career. Started in NXT, of course. And moved up to main roster, was paired up with Mandy Rose. They had their whole feud, if you remember that. And then there was the whole stalker incident, which took her off television for a while. She went, handled that case, and then made her return. She was GM of one of the brands. Was it SmackDown for a while? Or she was the villainous GM or assistant. I don't remember. Like that. You know, she was always on TV. And she was in the midst of, you know, she was getting some airtime. I don't know if you'd call it a push, but she was not, you know, relegated to the back of the line by any means. So, you know, again, not unlike Baron Corbin, where you're like, well, you know, you could be Baron Corbin, but that doesn't mean you have a secure job here. That doesn't mean you got job safety here. And I think, again, that's a very interesting message that's being sent out there. AOP and Paul Ellering. Look, honestly, chat, help me out here. Have they even done anything? Did they even do anything with the time that they were back in the WWE? Like, as many of you know, I only watch the pay-per-views. I haven't seen them wrestle. And I don't think anyone has seen them wrestle since they returned, right? I know they were hanging out with Karrion Kross in the whatever stable name it was, right? And they were being assaulted by the Wyatt Six or whatever, you know? But AOP beat the spooky Wyatt Six. I mean, you know, the authors of pain, here's the thing, is they stink. So, you know, it's maybe someone figured it out and was like, yeah, you know what, these guys, they're just no good. So maybe, you know, maybe they'll go back to Europe and they'll try to set up another wrestling event like they did some time ago. Maybe they'll try their hand at promoting again. Sure, you know, it's whatever. Paul Ellering was the package deal. It's whatever. I don't know. I don't know who could. I don't know who could be upset about this, right? Blair Davenport also being released. Former B Priestley. Here's someone else I believe that didn't do much. Like she had been in the company for a while as well. But she was, you know, I don't see where she fit into this new NXT that they had set up. I didn't even see where she'd fit in on main roster, right? She was up on main roster. She had been called up, and that's another thing. You know, we're talking about, you know, just, you know, no one has a safe job here. Look, it's like what happened to Dijak last time. You get called up, and the next thing you know, you're getting released. Like, no one is ever safe. Why bother calling them up in the first place then? Why are you going to call them up if you don't have anything for them? And not only not have anything for them, but you're like, well, we're just going to send you home. Thank you. Future endeavors, etc., right? Just then, why call them up in the first place? Like, that's stupid. You know, this is why, you know, it's another thing. Like, this is something that would happen with Vince as well. Back in the day, you'd call someone up and then have nothing for them, right? But they'd be called up, but then have jack shit for them to do. So now it's kind of like the same thing here, where it's like you have Sonya Deville, not Sonya Deville, Blair Davenport, B. Priestley. She gets called up, and we got nothing. So, this company really hasn't changed all that much, if you ask me, in a lot of its processes. Anyway, so these people were released, but Sonya Deville's contract did run out, or is not being renewed, and she's going to be a free agent in a couple of weeks. Let's move on. We've got Isla Dawn here, who also confirmed that she's gone from the company. She appears to be finished. Adding to the recent wave of departures that included Sonya Deville, the Authors of Pain, Cedric Alexander, Paul Ellering, and Blair Davenport. Again, I've got nothing. I legitimately have nothing. I don't know what Isla Dawn brings to the table. I think she's a bang average wrestler. I'm not saying she stinks. I think the Authors of Pain stink. Does she stink? Nah, I think she's very fine. She's fine, I really don't know what you do with her, outside of her being one of the token Scottish women to win the titles at the Castle Clash last year or the year before. Well, yeah, it was in 2023, right? It was in 2023, right? The Clash will clash. The Clash will cash. Cash at the Classel. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This is a woman, right, who has been with the company for like 9 years or something like that. She was in NXT UK, scraping by, not doing much, not tearing the world on fire, actually not doing anything. And then comes to NXT, doesn't do much here either, and doesn't do much on main. Like, she'd just been cashing checks. Good for her, though. I don't know. She's all right, but I don't see. I don't know what again. I don't have many thoughts. Like most of these releases, I'm like, okay, if you say so, that's fine. The Good Brothers and Giovanni Vinci were also released. Let's talk about Giovanni Vinci first, because again, this is this is one where you go through it pretty quickly. Vinci debuted in WWE as part of the 2016 Cruiserweight Classic and later formed a tag team with Marcel Bartel in 2017, who is Ludwig Kaiser, for those of you who are paying attention at home. The duo aligned with Walter and Ludwig Kaiser to form Imperium and captured the NXT Tag Team Championships twice. Vinci was removed from the group in April 2024 and had limited appearances on WWE programming forward. I still don't understand what the logic was. I don't know why they just didn't keep the group together. I really don't. I don't understand. I just don't understand why it became. But, WWE doesn't like stables. They don't like groups. Unless these groups are like at the center of the biggest storyline in the company. But, they just like wibble wobble and whatever. I can't tell you that I'm very upset about this, but Fabian Eichner has, I've always liked him. I've always had a real soft spot for him. And I think he's a guy that has never really had an opportunity in all the years that he's been in WWE to show off what he's got. I don't think he's ever had an opportunity to do that. He was a power cruiserweight, big, strong guy. You could contest as to whether or not he actually did make the weight or not. We could have conversations about that, sure. But I liked him. I always had a soft spot for him. But again, this is a guy where you're like, well, singles run, really? I thought he was fine in Imperium. I don't know what the issue was. Could be stuff backstage. You never know. Now, the Good Brothers. Wait a minute. Do we know that? Okay, Vinci has been released. So again, another cut. So the Good Brothers were also cut from the company. Let's read the little blurb here. Anderson and Gallows had been with WWE since returning in June 2022. Their first stint lasted from 2016 until their release in April 2020. Gallows previously worked for WWE from 2005 to 2010 under gimmicks including an imposter cane, Festus, biscuits and gravy, and a member of CM Punk's Straight Edge Society before being released in November 2010. And then he went off to New Japan and had a wrestling match so bad that Antonio Inoki entered the ring, came into ringside, throwing chairs around, demanding the match be stopped, breaking kayfabe, and requiring that the match be stopped, which is funny. Yeah, I mean, look, the Good Brothers are another team where I'm like, I don't know, like what do these guys have to offer that is special in the year of our Lord 2025 in pro wrestling? And quite frankly, I don't know. I don't know what the Good Brothers have to give. I don't think they're interesting. I don't even think they're all that funny. I know a lot of people like, you know, they like the hijinks. They think they're funny. I don't think they're that funny. No, I really don't think they're that funny. And medium effort Carl Anderson is very rough to watch. I've seen medium effort Carl Anderson in New Japan in younger years. And it's not that great. I don't see what, now that they're older and whatnot, I don't know what they have to give. I really don't know what they have to give outside of these guys returning to New Japan and making Carl Anderson the leader of the Corpse of Bullet Club. Like, that's all. Because, I joke, but I think that New Japan will always welcome Carl Anderson back. I think they will always open their arms and bring him back because he substituted for, and I'm trying to remember the story, but it was like, I think Carl Anderson's out of Cleveland, right? And I think, and this is years ago, and he befriended some people who were working with New Japan while working the indies in Cleveland. And New Japan was in a pinch. And they were scrambling to find a guy, and they needed a gaijin. And I think the story goes that someone said, well, this guy, Carl Anderson, super solid, let's bring him in. And so he flew to Japan to substitute for a match. And they were so impressed with him doing that and his attitude and his work that they kept bringing him back and, made him a part of the Bullet Club story. And there's always been a great sense of loyalty because of that. As much from Anderson as from New Japan as well. So I would assume that if Anderson wanted to work New Japan, they'd welcome him back. Now, would they welcome him back with open arms and offer him a full-time gig? Probably not, because the economy is in the pits in New Japan, in Japan, period. And New Japan is not in a great spot financially. Wrestlers are taking pay cuts. So I'm not sure they'd be able to afford him full time. But if you wanted to work some dates, I'm sure they'd be more than happy to accommodate, right? I've been for a tour or whatever. I'm sure I'm convinced that would be all right. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of a thing that we have that could happen. But I mean, I think Luke Gallows, but we're talking about Carl Anderson, right? Because I think Carl Anderson still has mileage. Despite the fact that I don't understand personally, I don't know what the Good Brothers have to bring to the table. I think Carl Anderson still has some gas, but I don't want to see Carl Anderson in a singles run, particularly in New Japan anymore. This new fresh-faced New Japan, we don't need Carl Anderson. We don't want Carl. I don't want Carl Anderson. That's fine. Luke Gallows is done. He's toast. Like that guy is broken down. We'll never remember Luke Gallows for his work rate to begin with. So we're not going to pretend that these later years are suddenly revelatory and he's become some kind of super worker, because he's not. Okay, we're not going to pretend. So I'm not necessarily enthralled at the idea of Luke Gallows being out there again, because at this point, that Carl Anderson is always going to negotiate with his boy in mind. Well, if I come, my boy comes with me. That's just, they're joined at the hip. That's how it goes. And I understand that. And I respect that as well. Don't get me wrong. That kind of loyalty, that's tremendous. I don't want to see Luke Gallows wrestle anymore. It's fine. Now, I don't see anyone in WWE, none of the fans, I don't see anyone shedding any tears. That's fine. We're good. That's fine. And we're good. Elektra Lopez was released as well. I mean, I think we had all sort of seen that she was a look, and that was it. And they gave her, how long had she been there? Elektra Lopez. How long had she been? Yo! Look at this rating. 3.21. Jesus. This is and this is from the WWE fans, right? Who are like the easiest to please of all time. And you know what? Look, I'm going to give a little bit of a grace period. We're not going to do a cage match dumpster dive. Not so soon after being released from her job, and I'm sure it probably sucks, right? So I'm not gonna twist the knife here. We're not gonna do this on purpose. Look, this woman's she's been in the business since 2017, right? In the WWE system since 2021. She's been there for 4 years, 5 maybe. She didn't wrestle at all in 2025 before her departure. So it's like, if she's not getting better, then yeah, you have to cut loose. You have to cut bait at some point, right? And I think 4 years for a developmental talent is a pretty good indicator as to whether or not they got it or not, right? I think that's a good cutoff point, as opposed to waiting 7 years like they fucking did with Indy Hartwell, right? Wasn't it something like that? It's like 7 years or something like that. Listen, I got nothing. I've got nothing. She was a look, but she never came across. She's not a good wrestler. Okay, just simple as that. Not a good wrestler. Never improved in the 4 years she was there. So what's the use? What's the point, right? What's the point? You don't keep that hanging around. It didn't work out for her. She was the forgotten one in the forgotten one that trained in the same group as Deanna and Wendy Chu. Oh, so she was part of that class. Wendy Chu. There's another one who's got to be worried for her spot, right? Here's the thing, though. If we X out of the cage match. Here's the thing, though, about the WWE releases here. Because now, the question that comes to everyone's mind, that everyone gets really, really excited about is, okay, now where are they going? What are their next steps? Will they go to AEW? Will they go to TNA? And I see a lot of people making some compelling cases for guys like Cedric Alexander going to AEW, or Fabian Eichner going to AEW as well, right? People going to we saw it a little earlier, right? Like the Good Brothers would be great in TNA, right? TNA, which is pretty much it's an appendage of WWE now. So it makes me wonder, like, for the TNA stuff, it's like, oh yeah, Sonja'd be great in TNA, but I'm like, the WWE and TNA have the talent exchanges, right? So is this possible? And if so, is this, look, again, this is, maybe it's a little conspiratorial, but is this just a way for WWE to offload some talent? And then TNA going, oh, this is interesting. And they pick up Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows and Sonya Deville maybe at a discount, because they're not getting their WWE rate. And then WWE can still use them once in a while, but all the costs have been offset, right? Now you can have it's not unlike, what's her name? Ash by Elegance, Dana Brooke. If WWE ever wanted to use her again, which they did, they brought her on NXT last year. You're going to be like, oh yeah, the former Dana Brooke, but we're not paying for her anymore, so it's fine. They just bring her in, have her do her little stint. She collects her salary, right? I mean, that would be a thing if you ask me. I wouldn't be surprised. Send Da Vinci, Fabian Eichner to TNA. And don't you think that would be weird? That would be so weird. But then again, I'm sure some WWE fans would be like, oh, it's fine. Look, we're all in the same family. They stay in the WWE family, right? Because TNA is part of the WWE family. WWE told us that it was okay. WWE told us it was okay to like them. So it's fine. Don't worry. Don't worry about it. That makes me, it's so strange to me, this relationship. So it's like going to TNA might be just something very strategic, where it's like they stay in the same family. WWE still has the opportunity to use them when they want, and if they don't want, but whatever, they're not paying, right? They're not paying for it. So it's cool. It's chill. Don't worry about it. Zachary Wentz, we can use him as much as we like. He can come on NXT with the X Division title and everyone will think it'll be super cool, but he can still stay away because we don't want to pay for him because, we got a lot of flippy guys already. Plus he did the Hitler mustache thing and, yeah, I mean, we don't really mind, but people out there kind of mind. People out there don't like this Hitler fella, What? What do I think? Oh, you have to ask me at a press conference. Yeah, you have to ask me at a post-show press conference. You have to get your question in. I don't know if you'll get your question in, but if you get your question in, you can ask me my thoughts about Hitler. I don't quite see, or at least if TNA does pick up some of these people, I'm going to find it weird. I'm just going to find it weird. I'm going to find it weird. Now, as it pertains to bringing these people over to AEW, all right, I have two thoughts on this. Thought number one, there's no one that has been released here. No one that requires Tony Khan to sit down, scratch his beard or his 5 o'clock shadow and say, I wonder if I should open up the checkbook for X. There's no one here who is interesting enough to make that, for him to do that, I believe. Okay. The second thing is that I don't think Tony Khan should be bringing in any more people from WWE for a while, unless it is someone that you just cannot pass up. Unless, John Cena on his last year with WWE gets into a fight with Triple H and he gets fired, something you cannot pass up. All right. Something that you'd be like, okay, this is bonkers. CM Punk wants to come back. No, I don't even think CM Punk should be back in that locker room. Roman Reigns, something to that on that level. Other than that, leave everyone away. Because right now, If Tony and the AEW crew are listening to the fan base and have their ear to the ground, they are hearing that what AEW fans want is their people pushed. They want their people at the front line, and they want the young guys that were brought up in AEW to get pushes, to be featured more, to be on TV more. So if you bring in a guy like Cedric Alexander, who is a super talented pro wrestler, don't get me wrong, right? And you're like, well, why don't we bring him in? It'd be tremendous, right? You know, why not Cedric Alexander? That'd be amazing, right? I'm like, hang on a second. Cedric is amazing. I think he's a good talent, very good talent on top of that. But who loses his spot to Cedric? Who then do you decide to take off television and make room for this guy? Same goes with Fabian Eichner, who I really like. The same goes with him. You bring him in, you're like, you kick the tires, you see how it goes. You know, give him a little contract. Okay, who are we taking off TV? Daniel Garcia? I don't want Garcia off of TV. Mark Briscoe? Who are you taking off TV? Who are you taking off TV? Did you have a... we were about to push the Martins again, Top Flight, but we brought in Fabian Eichner. We got to go do something else now. Dude, no. You see what I mean? Like, the issue right now, one of the main issues that exists in AEW right now is that the guys that Tony is bringing in are taking out spots from people that the AEW fan base actually want to see, like truly and sincerely want to see. I think that's a big crux of the issue. And you're starting to hear the grumblings, right? You're starting to hear the grumblings of, TNA bringing in the former WWE cast-offs, right? It's not as bad as that. Again, like, I think people, it's like the WCW, people immediately, when it comes to AEW doing, making bad decisions, they will refer to the worst moments of a promotion to make a comparison when what's going on in AEW right now is not even remotely as bad as the comparison they're trying to make. You know, when people will say, oh, this is exactly like WCW 2000, like, no, it's not. No, it's not. AEW has had its moments, especially during the Brochachos, where it wasn't great, but it was never, ever as bad as WCW 2K. Trust me, that's proof that people didn't watch it. So when people are saying right now, AEW is turning into TNA, too many WWE guys, I'm like, thank you for sounding the alarm, just raising the attention. Hey, yoo-hoo, maybe it's getting a little dicey. Maybe you should start, being careful of what you do. But we're not even close. We're not even close to the worst of TNA going off and bringing everyone in from WWE who was released, who's, got out of their contract or whatever. We're not even close to that. So just because we've got Jon Moxley, who I can't even, in my mind, I can't even consider Jon Moxley to be a former WWE guy. This guy has given everything to AEW. If there was ever a guy that I consider an OG, and that I think everyone else does, and has completely forgotten that this guy used to have a WWE identity, it's Jon Moxley. This guy, gave himself heart and soul to this company. He was the MVP of this company for an entire year while things were crumbling all around him. It was break glass, call in Jon Moxley. So I can't even, but let's say you did want to see it through that lens. And then you bring in, you put Adam Copeland at the top, who is still very much a WWE guy. FTR, who maybe you could say still have that, that part of the, I don't know how far you want to go. Claudio, Pac, again, like these are, you might be stretching it when it comes to Pac being a WWE guy. It's like, you can look at that, like objectively, you can look at that, step back and like, hey, I know all of these guys from WWE. What are they doing in AEW? True. Like there's only Wheeler Yuta really in that feud where you're like, oh, who's this guy? Right? And Ricochet's in a big spot and so on and so forth. We're not even close to being as bad as TNA was. And you have to believe me on this, right? We're not even remotely close. But when you get to, but nonetheless, the idea of bringing WWE guys in, like Bobby Lashley, like, it's not that there haven't been people from WWE brought in. But I think you have to be careful. You have to be careful because, again, you bring in these people, you're going to want to put them on TV. So then who loses their spot? Who then will not be featured prominently if these guys are brought in and given the spots? And that's what you have to think about. As a fan of AEW, for instance, that's what you think about. Like there is no one here that I would want to see come in and take the spot of a Daniel Garcia or Hook or, name an Orange Cassidy, name your preferred wrestler of choice. No one. I don't want anyone of these people coming in to do that because none of them are worth it. None of them are worth the return. And on top of that, when you consider that they've brought in some WWE guys who were extremely unsatisfied with their spot, who probably thought that they were going to be treated like royalty because they came from the big place and they were a true superstar, and they come in and wait, I have to build my rep here. Hang on a second. I'm so-and-so. I deserve better here. Your creative pitches, they don't work for me, brother. So what do? They sit in the locker room and stew, or they sit at home and stew, and just create a dark cloud within your locker room. And is this what you want? Is this what you want to continue to add? You got rid of the biggest cloud in your company, 2 years ago at this point? Or was it just last year? When did CM Punk leave? Oh God, the timelines. They're all so confusing to me. Yeah, 2 years ago, he got rid of him, right? Yeah, exactly. Okay. In 2023. He got rid of the darkest cloud. And now there's a couple of more dark clouds who are gone. Malachi Black, Miro. He got rid of Andrade. That was another one too, right? Who thought that, he wasn't well respected, well taken care of. Got rid of all those little dark clouds. What do they all have in common? Well, they all came in because Vince fired them. Because Vince got rid of them. And you saw potential, you brought them in, and they were like, I'm a WWE superstar. This is what happens. Refusing creatives, not wanting to do the work, and so on and so forth. We all heard the stories. So now you're purging your locker room of these bad elements, right? You're getting rid of wrestlers who don't want to be there anymore. Why would you go ahead? Why would you not favor cohesion in the locker room and trying to rebuild the feeling that you keep telling us over and over again? Start by building it with your guys and gals. Build them with your people first. And if they have the feeling, it will come across on TV. Just like if they don't, it'll come across on TV as well. That's what they should be doing. But we'll get into the AEW releases, but just to wrap up the WWE thing, the releases, especially when it comes to AEW, look, I whatever happens. And, I hope all of these guys and gals fall on their feet, land on their feet. The expression, Warren. Hope they all land on their feet and that things go well for them. But ultimately, I don't want any of them in AEW. And if I'm Tony Khan, I'm 100% saying, thank you for the subscription. I'm 100% saying, I do not want these people in my locker room. You know, I'm rebuilding it. We're getting rid of all the bad sentiments. Why would I try to upset this balance now? And here's the wacky thing on top of that. AEW has the stars. AEW has the talent. It has the people to elevate the company and bring it back to something that we once knew. It has everyone they need. Just needs a little oomph, a little creative. We need the week to week to be better. But it's not because they don't have the talent. Up and down the card, because they do. Up and down the card. Just have to play things right. Anyway, that's a whole other discussion. But there you go. That's how I feel about the WWE releases, especially as it pertains to their next steps. But now we're going to talk about AEW. One of the things that popped up first today being Tuesday, the 10th, February 10, because Malachi Black was removed from the AEW roster page as of Monday morning, which usually signifies that a wrestler is no longer with the company. PW Insider reports that Black is now a free agent with his AEW contract having expired yesterday. It's been expected for several weeks that Black would be departing AEW. He has not wrestled for the promotion since November 2024, and his former House of Black faction members Brody King, Buddy Matthews, and Julia Hart recently split off into their own group, with Black gone from AEW programming. Now that he's no longer under contract with AEW, a return to WWE looks likely for Black. Dave Meltzer reported last month that there had been discussions regarding Black within WWE Creative. There was also talk from WWE that he was expected there when his AEW contract expires. Meltzer wrote, "That's been the case for a while, but evidently there has been talk in WWE Creative about him at late." So, this was a long time coming. You know, here's the thing. Look, I'm going to be upfront. I have always had a Malachi Black, Aleister Black, Tommy End soft spot. Shoot me. Like that. What do you want from me? I've always had a soft spot. When he came into AEW after being fired, I'm like, what the fuck, man? Like, I didn't understand why he got fired in the first place. And then when he got brought in and, you know, was set up with Cody in the Codyverse, you know, having Cody letting him beat the piss out of him to get him over. And I'm like, oh, this might be interesting. And then things sort of fell apart. I don't know if Mal wanted to do, you know, spooky stuff and wanted to do teleportations and wanted to do, you know, all this stuff that he's really into. And Tony was like, nah, I don't want you doing that. You know, we can give Tony Khan a lot of shit. Okay. We can really give him a lot of shit for a lot of things. But outside of that one time with Matt Hardy, right? He has never been into the spooky shit, and he's never allowed it. You remember he did the spooky stuff. Do you recall this? One time when they were, this was in the pandemic era, and they showed Matt Hardy in the arena, right? They had the empty Daly's place. And they had Matt Hardy like in the stands, and he was blinking in and out of, he was blinking ever so closer to the ring. He'd be like, boop, boop, boop. Remember that? And Tony Khan after that was like, we are never doing that again. And they're like, we'll give it a shot. We'll see, you know, pandemic wrestling. And I don't blame anyone for trying stuff out. But they did it at one time, and Tony Khan slapped the table and was like, nope. 'Twas the first, 'twas the last. Or as that, there's also a Cheap Trick song. You were the first, you'll be the last. What was the rest of the lyrics? It doesn't matter. No. Well, who cares about Cheap Trick? They were big in Japan, though. Anywho, yeah, I mean, look, there's been so many stories. Like Malachi Black's, his entire presence in WWE, in AEW for the better part of his tenure there is, when is he leaving, right? When is he on his way out? When is he going back to WWE? He asked for his release. He's taking some time off to recalibrate. He's not really departing. No, he's fine. He's not injured. Yeah, you know, it was so exhausting, so incredibly exhausting. Someone in the Discord today asked me, said, "Warren, what do you think is the main reason why Malachi Black didn't work out in AEW?" And I flat out said ego. I think it's ego. I think his own self-worth got in the way. I think he's one of these. He's absolutely one of the WWE guys who came in thinking that he was going to rule the roost because he came from the real wrestling promotion, you know, and he was a real wrestling star. And you know, ended up sucking eggs. No, but like, you know, he ended up you know, not contributing and not being a productive member of the locker room, and et cetera, et cetera. So, the one thing that I didn't mention this with the WWE releases, because I feel like a lot of, you know, outside of Sonya Deville, they were all released, right? And I think probably a lot of them didn't want to. But in the case of these three men that we are going to talk about, I think all of them wanted to be gone. And I think they're all thankful that they're gone. I think they're all going to be happy and better off moving forward. And ultimately, that is extremely healthy. That's very healthy. And that doesn't get talked enough about in pro wrestling because, you know, there's so many kids and children on, you know, who watch wrestling now and go on Twitter and who don't understand anything, that they just go tribal about it, when in fact it is the healthiest thing to do. Go off, explore other options, try other things out, you know, build your worth at the same time, and just move around. Mobility is key, it's crucial, it's clear. It's so good. It's really healthy for pro wrestlers to do that. And, you know, we're gonna get the contingent of, oh, what a huge L for at least one guy. And to a degree, I do not disagree. But I'm not gonna sit here and tell you, oh boy, what a huge L that Malachi Black is gone. That's because the wrestling scene is what it is, right? If wrestlers could move around easier rather than being squirreled away into catering, not doing anything, it would be better for everyone. I think it'd be better for the wrestlers to begin with, and I think it can't harm the other companies. It can't, whatever, right? But you know, the fact that there are two major companies and there is a talent war, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. The companies will react this way. They will say, no, you stay put. You'll stay put until I tell you you can go. And then let's continue on from Malachi Black. We heard that Miro and Ricky Starks had been removed from the AEW roster page. PW Insider reported Monday that Miro and AEW reached a mutual agreement, which resulted in the Redeemer parting ways with the wrestling brand. It was previously reported in September that Miro had requested his release from the promotion. Miro had seen a lessened presence on AEW TV in recent years, notably not working any matches in 2024. Starks is similarly asked to leave the promotion before, per reports. Just last month, word got out that he had reportedly been denied a release in the past and was expected to stay on board the company until spring. So that was what we heard of. Then later on today, bam! Miro and Ricky Starks released from AEW. And releases in AEW do not happen very often. On Monday, PW Insider reported that AEW and Miro had come to a mutual agreement on his release from the company. It was also noted that Ricky Starks no longer appeared on the company roster page. Our own Dave Meltzer has since confirmed Both Miro and Starks have been released from AEW. Of course, we're reading this from the Observer Figure 4 Online, in case you're wondering, because when I say our own Dave Meltzer, that's Dave Meltzer doesn't work for me. Yet. Miro publicly requested his release in September and has not wrestled since World's End on December 30, 2023. Starks, who has been absent from AEW programming since March 2024, reportedly asked for his release last month but was denied. Malachi Black is also no longer listed. Deep dub doop. Miro debuted in AEW as Kip Sabian's best man in September 2020. He won the TNT Championship in 2021, but was used sparingly in 2022 and 2023, and not at all in 2024. Starks debuted for AEW in June 2020 and is a former FTW and AEW World Tag Team Champion. So this is clearly the biggest news here. Not even the Miro stuff, but we can talk about Miro first. Yeah, Miro is just not happy. Again, like Miro's another guy who I think expected to, just I think it's another guy who was expecting to come in and have everyone fawn over him and get pushed instantly. And instead, what happened is he had a really good run, like I said, 20, from when he won the TNT title in 2021. He had a good run after that. The Redeemer stuff, I think, was universally praised. I think everyone really liked that. He had a good little match with Eddie Kingston as well. There was a lot to love out of this. And it was really good. His run as TNT champion, I think, was really, really good. And after that, I guess, he thought he'd be slated for better and bigger things. Being slated for mid-card acts by Vince McMahon all your career, move on somewhere else and you're like, well, I'm going to be a world champion here because everyone sees it except Vince. Look, I wouldn't have objected to a world championship run for Miro, don't get me wrong. I don't know if that would have been a great idea, but there's a lot worse you could do. So yeah, this is a guy who was miserable. There's a guy who was just miserable to the point that, I don't know if it's related, but or maybe the fact that he divorced Lana CJ again was probably, maybe that added to the misery. Those are not fun things to have to deal with in your career, not going the way you want. But yeah, this guy, look, you can't complain that he's been gone, that he's gone now. And the most important point I want to make here is that Miro is a demonstration that movement is good in pro wrestling. That we was just talking about, right? He comes into the company, does his intro, has a really great run at TNT, as the TNT title, and that should have been it. And then it's like, yeah, you know what? Let's head on up. Or maybe Tony Khan is like, Miro, you were great. I think that's the ceiling. I think I'm good. And Miro goes, all right, fine. And goes off somewhere else. Like if there were that kind of fluid mobility between promotions, we wouldn't be having these conversations to begin with. And I think a guy like Miro his run would have been much more fondly remembered, right? But no, it's, things are a lot more complicated and twisted and political, and it's not that fun. It's really not that fun. So I think it's a shame that his results ultimately will always be covered with this feeling of malcontent, of being a malcontent, I should say, because I thought he was good in AEW, but clearly was not what he signed up for. So, and that leads us to Ricky Starks, who is finally gone. And I am so happy. I am so glad it's done. You have no idea how happy that there is a resolution finally to the Ricky Starks ordeal, and this is something that online wrestling fans can finally move on from. I was so tired of the constant barrage of nonsense every time something Ricky Starks related would pop up. The slate is clean. He's going to WWE as many people expected. And that's fine. Again, it's healthy. It's healthy. Now, am I sad to see Ricky Starks go? Do I think the company has suffered by not putting Ricky Starks on TV? I don't know. I don't know. Like, I'm not denying, and I don't want to seem like I'm suddenly coping here, because I'm absolutely not denying that Ricky Starks has star power, extreme star quality, great promo skills, which is his forte, and then an incessantly interesting part of AEW programming. Now, that got railroaded for a couple of reasons, whatever pushes he was in, the neck injury, the CM Punk nonsense, despite the fact that he got an incredible Bryan Danielson match out of it all, okay? I understand that feuding with CM Punk it's another level. It's something different, right? Well, he'd be able to have his little feud with CM Punk. Maybe they can feud over a charm bracelet. Who knows? Or other items of jewelry. Who knows? They'll find something creative, right? So, I'm not going to pretend that he doesn't have potential or that I don't like him. I do a lot. But I don't know what to tell you when it comes to whether I'm upset that he's gone or not. For all the time that he's been gone, there is nothing that had me sitting there pulling my hair out saying, why isn't Ricky Stark on TV saving the promotion? Like, that hasn't happened once. Because he's, again, good and all, but hasn't created that looming of a shadow over AEW where it's like he's not on TV and you're like, something's missing. It's not like Kenny Omega, where you're like, Kenny Omega hasn't been around for all of 2024, and you're like, God damn, where the fuck is Kenny Omega? Why does he have to be on death's door? This company needs you, Kenny, You understand the difference what I'm putting down here? Maybe Ricky Starks could have hit some highs in AEW, perhaps, and I don't have issues believing that because he has the talent. Was he underpushed? Maybe a little, but again, between the neck injury, between the CM Punk nonsense, which is, it's its own beast in and about itself. There's a lot of things that happened that weren't his fault. And to a degree, not the company's fault. And I'm not talking about CM Punk here. Was he lacking in opportunities? Look, he feuded with MJF, feuded with Chris Jericho. Was supposed to feud with CM Punk, feuded with Bryan Danielson as a consolation. OG Willikers. It's not as if he was fighting nobodies. You know what I mean? So it's not as if he didn't have the opportunities. They were given, some worked, but ultimately a lot of stuff didn't happen. And again, most of it is not necessarily even his fault. So in the interest of healthiness, I think this is a theme here, of health, he goes off to WWE, tries out the pastures there, and see how things go, right? Now, the thing here, I see a lot of people in our chat saying WWE's the spot for him. He was, He's going to thrive there. I'm going to tell you, the closest comparison right now that you could make in regards to Ricky Stark in WWE is LA Knight. And they kind of, they're doing stuff with him, but it's not exactly, LA Knight isn't exactly the hot commodity he was in 2024, right? Was it 2024? When did he debut? 2023? People still like him. They like to do the LA Knight chants and all that. It's fine. He does the Slim Jim, he snaps into them and whatnot. But, and Ricky is, he's a good little pro wrestler. He's not the guy who is going to crank out the 5-star matches, and that's not his style. It's not who he wrestles for. It's not for people like me. That's fine. So, but he's got good work. He'll be able to live up to the WWE working standard. I'm not saying that he's going to get buried for not being able to work. All I'm saying is that pound for pound, a close comp is LA Knight, and look at where LA Knight is now on the card. And this is another guy that I knew. I'd been saying that for years about Eli Drake. This guy in WWE, he'll never put a microphone down. And the more he talks, the more he'll get over. And it'll be the same with Ricky. It's going to be different in the sense that they're going to have a plan, and he's going to stick to the plan. And whether he's getting super over or not, unless lightning strikes and he turns into a Daniel Bryan, Becky Lynch type of situation and he becomes truly undeniable, I don't know what his, I don't think his ceiling is as high as people think. I think he's going to be a nice, comfortable mid-carder there. But I am absolutely excited and enthralled at the idea of him proving me wrong. And by the way, being a strong, competent mid-carder, there's nothing wrong with that either. There's just nothing wrong. And you can look at this okay, just to wrap it up for Ricky Starks, I think he is a missed opportunity for AEW. I think there are things that happened that were out of Ricky's control, AEW's control again, to a limit, that stunted whatever growth he had. I have no clue what happened backstage to sour relations to the point that they were, okay? Because I do know the relationship is terribly sour between the parties. I don't know what happened to get to that point, but we got to that point, and this is where we're at now. And I think it's good, healthy for him to move on, and I wish him the best of luck in that Shark Tank, which is WWE. Because if you think people don't constantly maneuver in politic to keep their spots and keep people down, if you think this is, a let's work together, hurrah, go team locker room with you, you got another thing coming. This is like, there's too much money. There's too much money for this to be an ensemble cast of everyone pulling for each other. That's just not it. Which leads me to this point here, where now Triple H, old Paul, is bringing all these people in, right? He's bringing more and more of these. He's bringing in the AEW cast-offs into WWE, right? We did the Penta thing, Jade some time back. We got, the minor scrubs in NXT. We got Ethan Page and Pillman Jr. And I'm sure I'm forgetting someone. And then he's bringing back Malachi Black, most likely bringing in Ricky Starks, most likely bringing back Miro. Now, again, the question must be asked. Is Triple H going to do the exact same thing as Tony Khan, where he's just going to bring in guys from the outside and set aside other guys take the AEW cast-offs as some chest thumping to go, ah ha ha ha, I like Vince, conquered all, and they all will work for me, kind of thing, right? Remember when Vince said that? They all end up working for me. There you go. And Triple H is just a chip off the old block. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. So if we have Triple H right now doing that, doing exactly what I said Tony Khan should not do with these WWE releases, and Triple H is doing that, you have to ask yourselves the same questions. If he brings in all three of these guys, and I'm not saying he will, but there's a very good chance. If he brings in all three of these guys, whose spot do they take? Whose spot do they take? Do you think that Ricky Starks comes in and Carmelo Hayes continues to get TV time? Just throwing names. Do you think they continue to push Braun Breaker if they've got Aleister Black back? You know, name your favorite WWE mid-carder. Chad Gable. Do we continue to follow the ongoing adventures of Chad Gable if Miro is back? I'm just saying. The same thing can happen on the other side. And the thing is that, and actually Kristen just pointed out in the chat, this is exactly what I wanted to talk about. You know, Santos Escobar is a great example. Andrade is another great example. You know, Penta is really happy right now. And why wouldn't he? He's coming in, you know, he's number 2 in the Royal Rumble, and he's got the pyro, and people are doing the hand gestures, and he's really excited right now. But what happens when Malachi Black lands? What happens to Penta's spot? You know, you just have to wonder. Or who won't give up their spot for either of these three guys coming in? Because one of the things that creates tension in the locker room is when you have someone coming in from the outside and is pushed into a spot that the locker room, a lot of the people in the locker room have been fighting for, but then they instantly get it when they walk through the door, like Penta. Do you think sincerely that Penta waltzed in, and whoever was getting a push or getting the time and was told, well, you know, not this week, you think that person was like, hell yeah, zero miedo, buddy? No, they were pissed off. They were angry. It's the same thing. Like, who lost their spot when Tony Khan brought in Ricochet? Someone lost their spot. Someone is upset that Ricochet is in that spot when they feel it should have been them. Maybe they had been earmarked for it or whatever the fuck. Or Bobby Lashley, right? Why wouldn't you want to hang on to your spots like that? And so in WWE, it's the same thing. You know, like I said, it's not all rainbows and sugar candy. I don't know what I was going to say. I think I was going to say sugar cones, but did that make sense? Maple cones, that makes sense. It's not all rainbows and maple cones in the WWE locker room. Everyone's fighting for a spot. Everyone wants to keep a spot. Everyone wants to keep their spot. And that's normal. That's the cost of doing business. They don't want outsiders coming in taking their spots. I don't think anyone is like jumping for joy that Ricky Starks is coming in. Ricky Starks, who is also Cody's boy. And, you know, Cody's going to be throwing some weight around. Again, who are we keeping down then? Who is not getting the spot? So I'm just saying, look, all I'm saying is that, you know, I understand that for the fan base, for the vibes, for the fan base, the vibes, for the optics, that's the word I was looking for. It's a good thing for WWE to clamp down on guys who have left AEW and maybe leaving, you know, in not so great terms. I think it's good it's good optics, right? But it comes at a price. if the locker room is going to accept this or not. And chances are they're going to be pretty upset about it. Just saying. Just saying. So there you go. Roster stuff all around. It's very interesting stuff. Strap in, folks. It's going to be a fun review. New Japan Pro Wrestling's The New Beginning in Osaka 2025 that happened on February 11, 2025 from the Edion Arena in Osaka, Japan, of course. A big show. We can talk about the business aspect of it real quickly, like we usually do, but I do mean quickly, because I think the business aspect of this show is absolutely the least interesting thing we could talk about. And not because it wasn't good. Reported attendance for the show was 5,502. Now that compared to any other wrestling promotion that ran Edion since the start of January this year is tremendous. Like, Noah has ran the building, Stardom has ran the building, Dragon Gate, GLEAT, but we all know GLEAT is not a real promotion, but nonetheless, all drew sub 1,000 in attendance in this arena. So let's say if we were to compare with the last times New Japan were here, right? Well, on night 10 of World Tag League, they showed up in Osaka at the Edion and drew under 1,000 as well, 951 people. The New Japan Stardom Historic Crossover 2 show did 3,547, which is, not a bad number, but not a great one either. And then we can go back to, Power Struggle at the start of November last year. That drew 3,773. So again, like not disastrous attendances, but definitely not great ones as well. So just to give you a perspective as to how solidly this show drew. But like I said, the business aspect of it is unquestionably the least interesting part of that we can talk about, because this show was absolutely phenomenal. Like, this was a legitimately great professional wrestling show. I've got so much to talk about. I'm going to try and contain this into, something consumable, but I'm not making any promises. I am stoked about this show. I think it's great. I think it was a great show. I might even say it's one of New Japan's all-time great shows. And quite frankly, this is the bar for any other great show this year to cross, in my opinion. And this is just February. We're just in February. We've still got 10 months to go, 11 months to go. We've just started February. Well, we're midway through February. Look, fuck off. It doesn't matter. Just stop it. It doesn't matter. We have a show here that has absolutely established the baseline for what will be considered a great show moving forward in 2025. This was absolutely a remarkable show. From the business standpoint, from the wrestling standpoint, and from an emotional standpoint. You'll be hard-pressed to find a show this year that is going to combine so much quality with so much real emotion, with so much authenticity. People doing stuff in a pro wrestling ring to make you believe, to make you get invested, to create something palpable that you can latch onto. This is the through line of this entire show. It's emotion, everything connecting with emotion and making people feel shit. And on top of that, a series of great matches. Nothing stunk on this show. And on top of that, I may have one or two match of the year candidates here. I may be sprinkling the 5 stars around like I'm Emerald Lagasse going bam. You remember Emerald Lagasse, or did that just age me more than I needed to? Anyway, let's just jump right in, right? Let's just go right ahead and praise as we go along, because it's going to be one of those. And we'll start with the main event. Like, yeah, we have to start with the lead. We cannot start with anything else. We'll start with the top and we'll come back down. Something to that effect. The business end of the show is tremendous. We'll see how things go. But we cannot not start by talking about the main event where Hiroki Goto defeated Zack Sabre Jr. to become IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. This win has something, I think it has a little something for everyone. If you're a new fan, if you're an older fan, if you're a very old fan. I think this is one of these things that New Japan can do better than any other promotion on earth. Because I don't think there's any other promotion on earth that connects its history or the history of its wrestlers is what I mean. I don't think there's any other promotion on earth that connects their wrestlers' history to their matches as well as they do, and adds a completely different dimension that you just cannot find anywhere else. Like this, when people say there's no stories in there's no story. I don't watch Japanese because it's just flippy do shit. There's no stories. I'm sorry to say, I am not even so. No, you know what? I'm not sorry. Fuck you if you did not see a story here. If you were not a believer in this match because of the story. And it's not a story where there's someone stealing someone's jacket, or oh no, this guy's been eyeing this other guy's girl, and it's none of this stupid ass bullshit that we're often subjected to. It's consistent, it's smart, it's using the past to create moments of the right now in the present. And that to me is the best kind of storytelling you can do. And this was something that New Japan has always been good at. And I felt like over the past few years, they weren't as adept with it. I don't know what was the issue. I don't know what was the thing, but it wasn't as compelling. The Hiroki Goto tale, again, no matter where you jumped in into watching New Japan, just it had something that called out to you, that compelled to you. Look, we can absolutely talk about his history, right? Because his tale overall is, as it's always been the case with Hiroki Goto, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. That was his, essentially his theme in G1s, right? Despite the fact that this is an extremely decorated professional wrestler. He won the Young Lion Cup in 2005 when he's a literal rookie in this. And he's the guy they're like, yeah, we're going to do something with this guy. He's a World Tag League champion. He won it 5 times. He's a New Japan Cup winner in 2009, 2010, 2012. He's been a finalist in 2013, 15, 16, and 2024, last year. He's won the climax, the G1 climax in 2008. He was a finalist in 2016. He was a semifinalist, or at least in contention, every single year from 2010 to 2021. And that's not even talking about it. That's not even mentioning his championships, right? IWGP Tag Team Champion 5 times. He's a 5-time Never Openweight Champion. He's a 2-time Intercontinental Champion. He's a 2-time 6-man Never Openweight Champion, and he's a 1-time Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Champion. It's always the big one that eluded him, and that has always been the story. That has always been the tale of Hiroki Goto. Never quite making it to the end, never getting the big one. And even if you came in recently, last year, the year before, they've been on this tale, this story, talking about Hiroki Goto. They've been emphasizing it, where He's always wanted to be a world champion. Promised it to his father. His father passes away like a year ago in 2024, right? His father passes away. He makes it to the finals of the New Japan Cup, but a lot of people believing that he got there because Dave Finlay was injured out and had to forfeit his spots. Everyone was pretty convinced that Dave Finlay was making it to the finals, but it was Goto. And that moment in 2024, when he made it to the finals, triggered all of these feelings from a lot of us here watching, but particularly in the home crowds over in Japan. People showing up in the building, suddenly cheering Goto on like it's 2016. You know, where everyone wants him to win, especially considering the tragedy, especially him saying, I want to do this for my kids, and so on and so forth. And they just leaned into it. And they made us believe maybe Hiroki Goto can win. Maybe this year he can win the New Japan Cup. And maybe he gets a shot. And then he gets a shot, of course, winning the cup. And then maybe he can win the big one. But it didn't happen. Yota Tsuji won. Whole other, so another trajectory. But it sort of recreated or resurfaced this desire to have, from the audience, to see Goto, the man who was always the bridesmaid, who was always coming up short against the Tanahashis and the Okadas, right? The true big stars of the company. He was never in that pantheon of big stars for New Japan. He was in a nice range, a nice upper mid-card range, a guy who was reliable, that people had a connection to, and who understood the mandate of every match he ever went into, which was to empty the tank and just do whatever he could to win the match and to put on a great performance in the meantime. That's what he did. And again, the cup didn't work out. We move on to the G1 Climax in 2024. And suddenly, he's again in the conversation. He's winning matches. He's beating guys. He's not just, first and foremost, he's one of the old guys in this tournament. We got to speak on this first and foremost. He's one of the old guys that's thrown into this tournament, a tournament that a lot of wrestling fans saw that this was going to be a tournament that a lot of guys saw, a G1 that a lot of people, and myself included, saw as the moment for the young guys. This is the young guys moment. We gotta put the new guys in here and push them into big spots, so on and so forth. We've already discussed this in previous occasions, but that was the vibe, that was the feeling, and a lot of Hiroki Goto's peers, his contemporaries, were not in the G1. Hiroshi Tanahashi got kicked out. Tomohiro Ishii got kicked out. Of course, Okada's not around. Sure, Naito was in there, but there wasn't this great. He was the only one along with Naito, I guess, but everyone else that were these heralds of the G1s of old that represented another era in New Japan, they were all gone. And yet he was there. And while some folks, again, including myself, look, I'm going to throw myself under the bus here, that's fine, thought that he would just be around to take some L's, eat some pins and move on. He started winning matches. He started getting some matches. He started putting stuff together, and some great matches. A lot of young guys in this tournament were nonetheless still looking to find their footing, to understand what it meant to be in a G1 and the next level of a G1 is. Well, Goto was going out there and having these great G1 vibe matches. Of course, everyone starts rallying behind them. Again, we're in the same situation as the New Japan Cup, Where it's like, oh my God, people actually want him to win. People want him to go over. We're not talking about Yota Tsuji anymore. We're not talking about Shota Umino. We're not talking about any of the young guys. We want this guy, Hiroki Goto, to finally get his due. And we were coming up with scenarios towards the end. We were working the math, trying to figure out how this was all going to work, and it never. And, we'd come up with some wackadoo scenarios to get Goto to the end. And I was even positing at the time during my reviews of the G1. I was saying, look, you could do a lot worse right now than keeping Hiroki Goto out of the main event of the Tokyo Dome, because clearly he's got the support of the people. He's got a groundswell of support from New Japan fans. So you could have him win and face Tetsuya Naito in the main event of the Tokyo Dome. I was absolutely saying that at that point. Didn't turn out that way because the scenarios were a little too wackadoo for him to make it. But it nonetheless made a lot of sense. Just like Zack Sabre Jr. winning made a lot of sense. I'm not trying to bury Zack here in any way, shape, or form. We'll talk about Zack in a second. But when you put all of that together, you put the outlying story, that great 2024 that he had, and then wins the Ranbo, the fucking Ranbo. Who the hell gets invested in the Ranbo? Well, the fans of the Tokyo Dome were invested this year. They cheered. They got up on their feet. They didn't get up as much as they did at the New Beginning show, but the point ultimately that I'm making is that this story was there. Whether you've been watching New Japan for a long time, or at least, since the 2010s, or even if you just jumped in recently, it was very easy to get into this vibe, this Hiroki Goto winning vibe. And as we got closer to the match, there were a lot of people who were dismissing it. But guys like me and guys like Chris Samsa, who joined me on the show, shout out Chris, who joined me at the start of January after all of the kickoff stuff for New Japan happened, Wrestle Kingdom, Wrestle Dynasty, New Year Dash. We had been talking about it. And we talked ourselves into it. We're like, Hiroki Goto winning in February, beating Zack Sabre Jr.? Sure. It makes sense. You can go back. The tape is there. You can go back and listen to it. I was on this wagon a while back. And this time, no David Finlay there to make his daughter cry. No, none of that this time. No, she came out with her to join her dad with her brother, all dressed in a nice yellow dress, long white ribbon in her hair, just smiling. Don't know if Goto's boy wanted to be there. I could, but a nice moment. She wasn't crying. I legitimately watched to the very end to make very sure that David Finlay didn't run out to make her cry again, kind of thing. It's a tremendous moment. Just a tremendous moment was built. Look, I don't know how much happenstance this is. I don't know how much this was planned. Look, I believe that there's a lot of organic here, because I don't think it was in anyone's booking plans in 2025 or even in 2024 for that matter to have Hiroki Goto becoming world champion. I don't think so. I think there's a lot of this that happened naturally, organically, and maybe some politicking in the backs, whatever works, right? This was just a tremendously organic, well-built, smartly put together moment that, yes, was about, what were they saying, like 16 years in the making, 18 years in the making? I can't even remember anymore, to lead us to this point. And again, whether you jumped in recently or you're a long-term watcher, there was something for you here. There was something significant. Look, it's so fucking basic, but also so well done. Like, it's a basic story, but it's a story that works, and it's a story that's relatable, and when the elements are all there to make it just come together. Honestly, would this have worked as well if this Edion crowd was not as fucking hot as they were? Probably not. Probably not. But they were so incredibly hot. And I would suspect the upcoming crowds are going to be hot too. I think there's a legitimate groundswell. I think I've said this word like 11 times now, but there's a legitimate groundswell of popularity for Goto. And it might reflect in attendance moving forward. Look, no disrespect to Zach, who, Zack Sabre Jr., who I think is a tremendous pro wrestler and I think was a great champion. But, he wasn't exactly driving in the numbers. And look what happened. They come to the Edion. He and Hiroki Goto are at the top. And Zach was headlining stuff in the Edion, and he was he couldn't draw 4,000 people into the building. Let's just call it as it is. Hiroki Goto, though, in the main event, we're popping 5,000 plus. So maybe this is going to set something up. Maybe this is going to be a turning of the tides for attendance in regards for New Japan. I don't know. I have some little tidbits here from Chris Samsa, of course, at the Chris Samsa, sportofprowrestling.com, that supplied a few little tidbits here. Hiroki Goto has, before tonight, I'm recording this day of, right? So before the main event, before winning the title, had lost 6 straight singles matches at Edion Arena, Osaka. His last singles win at that building was during the 2019 G1 Climax when he defeated Jeff Cobb. And he last won a main event singles match at the Edion Arena in 2010 when he defeated Shinsuke Nakamura during the G1 Climax there, the G1 Climax 20. So those are some pretty mind-boggling statistics when you think about it. Like, last time he won a main event was 14 years ago. And his last 6 singles matches at that building, no good, brother. Let's talk about Zach a little bit. I touched on it a little bit. Like, I just want to come full circle on it. I don't think Zach is I don't think he was a bad champion. I don't think this is necessarily an indictment on him either, as far as, being a good champion, being a popular champion, or at least one that has support. But I also don't think like he was necessarily a draw for the company. I don't think he was a complete disaster. But the one thing we have to keep in mind always when discussing Japanese pro wrestling is that the business is still very dependent on attendance. There are no big media deals like we have here in North America, at least in the United States. That just is not the case. So their principal revenue stream is attendance. It's the ticket buying public. So if you're still looking to try and pop numbers, well, Zach was not the guy who was doing it. Now, you can make an argument, and I would be 100% supportive of it. You can make an argument where it's like, well, someone's drawing ability needs time in some occasions, right? To become a draw, sometimes you need a little time behind it. And I think I would argue that if it hadn't been for Goto's clear support from the New Japan faithful, they'd probably still stick with him. They probably still would stick with Zach. But I think they just see an opening to try something out. And I think it's a good move. I think they should be testing things out. They're testing a lot of things out in New Japan these days, and there's a lot of stuff that seems to be connecting. There's a lot of stuff that seems to be working. So why not give it a shot then? I that's probably the mentality that they had that had about it, right? But it's not as if Zach had a bad run. I don't think you can call it a bad run. I think his matches were. I think his matches were all really good, very good. A couple of great ones in there as well. And you can just look at the stats again, supplied by Chris Samsa here. Zack Sabre Jr. entered tonight's main event with a 12-match winning streak in New Japan singles matches. He's won 7 straight main event singles matches, dating back to the block final of the G1 Climax 34, back in August. Now, here's something also that's interesting. Zack Sabre Jr. ended 2024 with 20 singles victories after finishing 2023 with 24 singles wins. So that's back-to-back years with 20 or more singles wins, which doesn't happen very often. In fact, the last time it happened was in 2004 and 2005, and it was Hiroki Goto who held that distinction, having won at least 20 singles victories in consecutive calendar years. And on top of that, Zack led New Japan Pro Wrestling with a .800 winning percentage in 2024. And the last time a wrestler led New Japan at the end of a calendar year with a winning percentage under 800 was Kenny Omega, which was all the way back in 2018. So Zack is a pushed commodity, and he was protected, and he had a very good, stellar year as far as output goes. You can't say that it was bad. And I will maintain this, and I will argue this to the very end. He was still the best choice to win the G1 and then move on to the Tokyo Dome. I still think he was the best guy to be in those spots. And this despite the fact that even I was trying to reason a way to get Hiroki Goto to win the G1 and how would that make sense, and fighting Tetsuya Naito. And, ultimately, I think considering, the state that Tetsuya Naito is in 2024, it was probably best that he didn't main event the Tokyo Dome. And it was probably best that he didn't do it with Hiroki Goto, who I don't think could have worked really with Naito's weaknesses, or at least tried to hide them and enhance his strengths. I don't know. I still think that the outcome that happened with Zack was probably the best. And Zack is another deserving guy, another guy who's, gave everything he's had to this company and so on and so forth. So I think everything is fine. I think everything is fine on that level. And this match, let me tell you, we're talking about all sorts of ancillary stuff, but this match was absolutely remarkable. And early on in this match, I got the vibe that Zack was going to lose, because Zack he was very dominant. Okay. He was very dominant in this match early on. He was very much in control. He was feeding the hope spots that he would follow up and crush, and that's in New Japan match structure. I don't want to say usually, but oftentimes, how about that? Oftentimes, when that type of structure exists where one guy is really dominant and where one guy is really dominant throughout the match, that typically means that the guy who's getting the shit kicked out of him is going to mount the comeback and get the win, especially if the guy getting the shit kicked out of him is a babyface. And that's pretty much what Zack was doing, right? And he's in control. He's working the arm. He's working the neck. He's landing Zack drivers. Hiroki Goto getting hope spots, but he's landing the Ushigoroshi. He's landing a reverse GTR, but Zack is responding with Zack drivers. And there's the one where he does the Zack driver and Goto kicks out, and Zack immediately wrenches in to an armbar, right? And then he starts twisting Goto around into a Clarky Cat. And I'm there, and I'm there going, oh, what a shame. Like, this was such a nice match we had. You know, even I myself was like, because the Clarky Cat is like the worst submission. I think it's the worst stretch you can take in pro wrestling these days, I believe. Like, Zach takes too much glee and just, you know, stretching the shit out of the other guy. And I'm like, okay, well, this is it, right? But no, like, and it's a struggle for Goto to get out of, but he eventually does, which is tremendous. And the crowd is going nuts when he does get out of it. Even when he's in it. God, this audience, they're cheering him on. They're making noise. You know, so much for these polite Japanese crowds. Am I right? Oh, well, you know, the Japanese crowds, they're very, huh? What? Huh? Goto gets another hope spot that ends with him being locked into a sleeper. Zach lets go, lands a PK. Goto fighting spirits his way right back up to his feet and just pummels Zach with a lariat. Does the GTW. Zach fights back, but he gets pummeled some more. Shouting Kai to the delight of the crowd. Everyone just completely goes bonkers. Goes for the GTR. No. Zach reverses it into a Euro clutch, but Goto escapes from it. And that was, I held my breath on that one. They had me on that one. Like, Zach tries to avoid another GTR, to avoid a GTR, and eats it. And then Goto, for good measure, picks him up again, does a second one, gets the win. And this crowd instantly up on their feet. They're up on their feet. They're cheering. They're making so much noise. It is a wonderful professional wrestling moment. It's not manufactured. It's not people doing run-ins. It's not the lights going out and people appearing in the ring. People that, popped up in the past. Old legends, and then people going, oh, wasn't it nice when this guy showed up? No. A struggle, a fight. The purest story in pro wrestling you can tell happened right there. In a match that was full of drama, that was well executed, that was so smartly put together, that was booked to perfection, that an understanding of how the crowd was going to react throughout this entire match. Just a brilliant piece of work. Technically, emotionally, it's a 5-star match. It is a match of the year. It had everything going for it. I'm sure this year we will see matches that will have high spots galore and people doing insane shit and just having these incredible 60-minute matches or whatever, where it's just going to be like, man, what incredible work. This match went about 20 minutes. How long did it go? Yeah, just about 20 minutes, but it had heart. It had emotion. It had story. This was such the right call. Like, it was the perfect call. You could not have ended this show without Hiroki Goto standing there with his arm in the air, with his kids in his arms, with the fucking glitter all over his body. The streamers, whatever, the confetti. Not glitter. It's more like glittering confetti. That's how good this was. I like, it. I don't know, man. Like this, I feel like this is such a no-brainer. And I feel like if you like pro wrestling, you're gonna love this match. I don't know, like there's just too much. It's just, there are people who are going to work harder than this and will not be able to generate this type of emotion. And there are companies that like to believe that they create emotions and moments, but none as authentic and spot on and real as this was. A great match, great vibes, fantastic finish, like just a perfect end of chapter and moving on to another one. It just extraordinary stuff. Extraordinary stuff. It is unquestionably a match that I recommend. You have to put this on your list. You have to find a way to see it. If you can, you absolutely have to get your eyeballs on this one. I'll tell you, they were not kidding when they called this show The New Beginning. Let me tell you, because there's maybe I should have said this at the start of the review, but there's a lot of I think there is a through line here in this show where we're starting fresh with a bunch of people. We're starting off French, maybe not French. Don't start with French or with the French. It might get a little convoluted. It's like the bit I'm trying to make here, which really isn't landing. But there is a through line of new beginnings. I think that there's been new beginning shows in the past, but this show really did feel like we're starting something off. It is indeed a new beginning, and not just for the main event, but this co-main event as well, where Yota Tsuji and Gabe Kidd went to a time limit draw. Not time limit draw, just a plain old draw. So in the lead up to this match on the tour, Gabe Kidd, on one of the nights, Gabe Kidd and Tsuji had a confrontation, a post-match angle where they just beat the piss out of each other, which was tremendous. Like, and a really, really good beatdown. I think it was on, it doesn't matter. It was like on February 4th or something like that. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. The point here is that this match already had like a great vibe to it, and people were already into it. That we were excited for this. They did a really good job making this match for the secondary title feel special, right? And don't forget, this is a secondary title, which we can easily compare to WWE's Consolation World Heavyweight Championship, right? Which is not the real title, which is not the real top title. It's a secondary title. And it's brand new. It has no lineage. It doesn't really mean anything. So it's not a title that people necessarily feel attached to, because it doesn't have that great history of defenses, of champions, of so on and so forth. But Tsuji and Kidd here, they came into this match and they're like, look, this title, we know we know it's the secondary title, but we're going to try and add some spice to this. We're going to try and be Emerald Lagasse and add some spice to this and go, bam, there's some spice. This was a tremendous, physical, brutal fight. I was so into this. And this is by far Yota Tsuji's best match in New Japan. Like, it's not even fucking close. This is by far the best match he's had. And I think it's because he had the dance partner to drag that out of him. We here at the Mr. Warren Hayes show have been longtime believers of Gabriel Kidd. Even when, when he got back in the saddle, headed and got back onto New Japan, and was doing the tag team with Alex Coughlin, and people were so annoyed with him. There was one guy who was sitting behind this microphone and was consistent in saying, this kid is great. I don't know why everyone is shitting on him. In an environment that had felt so stale for the past couple of years, Gabe Kidd coming in and acting like a hooligan, and throwing some and just giving some energy, some life to the place, was something that I appreciated, that I was affectionate to, that I latched onto, and I was like, no. He might need some polishing, he might need some finishing, but this guy is tremendous. We have never wavered. We have never wavered here at the Mr. Warren Hayes show, folks. And our tenacity has paid off, because we can sit here and say, we saw this coming. We saw 2025 Gabe Kidd coming. We saw it. And he thrives in these environments. And he is absolutely 100% positioning himself as a babyface, coming in, going around the audience, going into and around the audience, right? And doing all this stuff, getting the people to cheer, pointing to the lion mark on his trousers, not on his trousers, on his trunks. I noticed there were so many advertisements in the ring tonight. There wasn't even a lion mark, which I'm sure had to piss Gabe Kidd off, because when he was challenging Tsuji to come to the middle of the ring, it's like, come here, come right here. Like, there's no lion mark to, it's like the nuts. It's nuts. It's the nuts sponsor. The sponsor called Nuts. I'm not trying to be funny. There's the sponsor. You've all seen it by now. It's called Nuts. There's a Japanese company that's called Nuts, and it sponsors New Japan Pro Wrestling. Nuts. Anywho, like early on in the match, they're just walloping the shit out of each other, right? And Yota Tsuji at some point, he just lands like the biggest open hand strike on Kid's chest, and Gabe collapses in the easiest sell on earth, right? Like the easiest shit to sell of all time. And the audience oohed, when that one came off. And I'm like, man, this shit already rules. It's already fucks. Please, like, do something cool. Like, keep this going, right? And there's one scary spot where, Gabe Kidd and or at least it looks scary because the camera work wasn't necessarily there on that spot. But Tsuji is trying to set Gabe Kidd up for a superplex, right? And they're on the top turnbuckle, and Gabe Kidd sort of resists and shoves Tsuji off, or you can't quite see what the move is. And Tsuji lands on his face, like on the side of his face. I'm like, holy shit, hopefully he's okay. And he was okay. It's fine. These, clearly tough guys, tougher than I am. And they just go back to pummeling each other after that. Just laying into each other. Huge lariats, power bombs. You get the stomp, right? And this incredible spot where Tsuji sets up the spear and goes right for Kid. And what does Kid do? He grabs him and lays him into a pile driver. I'm out of my seat. I'm out of speed. And I'm walking and I'm pacing and walking and pacing. What's the meme? It doesn't matter. That's what I was doing. It's like, holy shit, what am I watching? This is tremendous. And the crowd is rumbling. The crowd is so into this shit. More strikes. The bounce back lariat is next. Then Kid goes for a running knee, countered by a spear. But Tsuji can't counter. These guys their tank is on E. They've just been beating the shit out of each other. And neither guy can get back up to beat the 10 count. Ref calls the match. And I applaud this finish because here's the thing. I think Gabe Kidd needs to start winning matches. And I think New Japan realizes this. They probably booked this with the intention of Yota Tsuji getting a win, starting off his legacy. But now they're like, you know what? We got to be careful of Gabe Kidd now. We got to actually start protecting this guy. We can't let him go around willy-nilly losing right and left. So what they decided to do instead was create this super strong feud between these two guys. One that could carry over to another match. Let's say if a match were to finish with an unclear finish, with an undecisive finish. There you go. That's the word I was looking for. A tremendous match. Again, just full of great pummeling. The kind of pro wrestling that makes me happy. I'm a simple man. What do you want from me? You got people willing to beat the piss out of each other for my entertainment? Who am I to turn that down? I am absolutely not going to poo-poo that. It's the kind of, it resonates with me, and especially when it's done with such passion and verve. And there's so much that came out of Yota Tsuji in that match. Stuff that I had been dying to see from him. Because I like Yota Tsuji as much as the other guy. But I myself had kind of been starting to question, is this the dude, right? You can go back and listen to my tapes, right? I say it out loud. I think he's going to be a vibes guy. He's going to be a Shinsuke Nakamura, where he can have decent matches, but he always comes out and he has this great aura about him. And then he hits the ring, and when it's time to deliver, he'll have these great matches. But I hadn't seen the great match yet, and I finally got the great match. Like the great match. The perennial Yota Tsuji match. And maybe this will light something in him as well. Maybe he'll realize something. Maybe he'll understand something too. And he'll be more than just a vibes guy. Which, again, is fine if he wants to be a vibes guy and the company's okay with it. But a guy like him, I would assume there would be more in the tank than what we're used to seeing. So this was also great for me as well, on a personal level, on a level on a level where I appreciate Yota Tsuji's work. I'm glad that we were able to extract that big match out of him as well. And guess who did it? Gabe Kidd does it again. This might actually be a theme for the rest of the year. You know, has the match with Kenny, it's tremendous. Has the match with Ishii, it's tremendous. Is this going to be the meme? Is this going to be what we're going for? Gabe Kidd does it again. Not even hard for me. It's another 5-star match. It's another match of the year contender. It's another match that you make time out of your life, you know, to watch this match. You know, you put the phone on do not disturb. You turn the lights out to make sure the neighbors don't come knocking. You open up New Japan World and you enjoy. It was so good. So incredibly visceral and brutal. Just great stuff. This is also a busy show. There was a lot of stuff happening outside of the matches too. After the match, the House of Torture show up to attack Yota Tsuji, which then eventually the lights go out and they come back on, and Evil and Dick Togo are at the top of the ramp, and they are not wearing House of Torture apparel. They're in just plain black tees, and they're not snarling or doing House of Torture stuff, and you're like, basically, look, they're teasing. They're just doing, they're doing a tease because they hit the ring. They pretend that they want the guys to stop beating up on Yota Tsuji, but then Evil does his move, the Everything is Evil, on Yota Tsuji, and they start beating up on him. And then they also beat up on Gabe Kidd. And then Evil grabs the microphone, cuts a promo, and says essentially that that House of Torture is splintering away, and they want nothing to do with the War Dogs. The War Dogs suck or whatever. So effectively, I think it's pretty safe to say that Bullet Club is officially dead. I think we're done with Bullet Club. I think it's finished, right? 'Cause there are no members left. There are no. I think Chase Owens is the only guy left in the company who was affiliated with Bullet Club, right? You could have said Robbie X, who's not in the company, but nonetheless affiliated. But then he's coming in with Taiji Ishimori. We'll talk about that later. So he'll probably be affiliated with the War Dogs now. He's probably going to be in that faction. Chase Owens, that's about it, right? Kenta's gone. Ishimori joined the War Dogs. That's it. Fale's not relevant anymore. It's done. Bullet Club is finished. It's done. And it's fine. I think it's fine. I don't have any real thoughts on, especially since I think we have much more interesting stuff still to talk about than the Bullet Club. But yeah, I get another match of the year candidate. Yota Tsuji and Gabe Kidd. Go watch this match. Absolutely, positively, go watch this match. Let's keep going down this path. We'll go from the top of the card, and we'll keep working our way to the bottom. So we'll stay on that path. So next, we are going to talk about Tetsuya Naito and Hiromu Takahashi defeating the Young Bucks to become the new IWGP Tag Team Champions. I thought the Young Bucks were absolute superstars in this match. Absolute superstars. They look great. They look like in great shape. You know, not that I ever thought the Bucks didn't look like they were, but you know, they seemed a lot more fit. How about that? They seemed a lot more fit. They seemed ready for the show. And what we ended up getting was the Young Bucks. I think that everyone likes: creative, dynamic, great offense. You know, this is the kind of stuff that you expect out of the Young Bucks. And they were working extra hard in this match because I really do think that they were on a mission to make sure that Naito could get through it, because Naito really didn't work that hard. Nor did Hiromu as well. But the Jacksons, Jesus Christ, like they didn't stop at all, and doing signature Bucks offense on top of that. And whenever, and it was particularly obvious when Naito would do stuff, it would actually slow the match down. The Bucks would have to slow the match down to, you know, to eat and avoid the double clotheslines and Hiromu doing the flippy neck breaker thing that he does with Naito, the tandem thing, because Naito can't jump up on his own anymore. Or Naito just waiting there with his knee outstretched so that someone can land on his knee for a low blow. That kind of stuff, you know? You know, there's some weird spots in this match. Naito tries to do a Destino after avoiding the EVP trigger and he can't do it. Which, you know, Naito and the Destinos now is a crapshoot. So that's one thing. There's a weird spot as well with the Meltzer driver being reversed that it was 100% a Young Bucks spot. Like that was something that they came up and said, hey, we could do this, but didn't quite turn out as well as they expected. And that leads to Hiromu and Naito doing more combo moves, and Naito finally lands a Destino for the win. Like, this is a great Young Bucks match. This is a great Young Bucks performance. People who seem to think that they've lost a step, that they're not as good as they used to be, are completely nuts. They're not watching these matches. Both matches, right? It's the 2 matches that they did in Japan this year. Both of their Japan matches have been tremendous. Both of them. And they did whatever they could, despite the fact that they were getting dragged by the limitations of Tetsuya Naito. It is what it is. I don't think there's any surprise in the result either. I think I pretty much called it as well. I'm pretty sure they're going to be going back to hang around AEW and do some stuff there. 3 3/4 stars for me on this match. As you can tell, still a very good match. Don't get me wrong. Like this is still, you know, I'm not throwing it into the bin. I think the Bucks worked so hard on this one to make this match work that it's commendable, but you know, you can tell it's a very one-sided affair throughout. Konosuke Takeshita defeated Oleg Boltin to retain the Never Openweight Championship in a tremendous match once again. I was joking a little bit about, it was a Gabe Kidd does it again. Well, Konosuke Takeshita does it again. Not a 5-star match, don't get me wrong, but this is like, it's a high-end great match. Like, this was so much fun. Konosuke Takeshita out there coming to the ring in his New Japan tracksuit. Oh my. And these two boys, they're just going full strength, full force at each other. Takeshita being the smarter wrestler, sees the opportunity, starts working the arm, the shoulder of Boltin. He does a superplex. Boltin, though, does a throwing slam. Like, he's picking up Konosuke Takeshita and throwing him around. And the feats of strength that Boltin does in this match are all the more impressive because Takeshita's not a small dude. It's not like It's not like Bolton is throwing around Yoshihashi, for instance. You know, it's not like Bolton is throwing around, name your lighter junior or your lighter heavyweight guy here or whatever. You know, it's like he's throwing around Konosuke Takeshita, who is a tall, strong, powerful guy. He does the gut wrench swing into the slam. He does the Vader bomb. He being Oleg, of course. And at some point, he's just deadlifting. Takeshita to oohs and ahs in the crowd. Like, everyone is into this. Blue Thunder Bomb by Takeshita, big slugfest as they clasp each other's hands. You know, they do the thing. They do the Predator salute. You know, the Predator handshake, but it's just to hang on to each other so that they can beat the more piss out of each other without running away, without having to walk too much, trying to conserve all the energy for the forearms and the slaps and the Jesus Christ. And it rocks. Like, they go hard, they go violent on it. And Takeshita lands knees and a forearm, and he collapses on top of Bolton Oleg, who then rises up from the mat with Takeshita on his shoulders, which is an incredible sight, again, to oohs and ahs from the audience. He lands the kamikaze, but Takeshita kicks out, and Takeshita finally locks in a guillotine, and Oleg tries to get out of it, and he just can't. Takeshita cinches in the guillotine and then does the Raging Fire for the win. This match fucking rocked. Like, this was tremendous. Just absolutely phenomenal. Look, I cannot say it enough. And I have seen enough of Konosuke Takeshita in New Japan at this point to say that he is better off gone from New Japan, from AEW. And AEW fans are probably upset at me saying that kind of thing, maybe, but look into your heart, you know it to be true. If you can see what he's doing in New Japan and you're okay with what they're having him do in AEW, I'm sorry, the dichotomy is just too wide. I cannot support that. I cannot support, mid-range kind of, hey, we need a heel, let's plug this guy in, Konosuke Takeshita. And I would assume that Tony Khan at some point, he feels it. He probably knows it. He probably knows that. For Takeshita, it won't be a question of money. It's going to be a question of wrestling and his legacy and building his name as a superstar. Because the more you see Takeshita in New Japan, the more you realize how much of a star he can be there. And I think they still need him. After tonight, maybe they don't need him as desperately as maybe a couple of months ago. But nonetheless, of course, if this momentum continues, right, I still think that he deserves a good spot in New Japan, and I think that's inevitably coming. And he is absolutely like one of the top 5 wrestlers in the world right now. He is so good at everything. And he understands who he is, and he understands what he needs to do. And that's why it works with a guy like Oleg, who is another power guy, and he can go toe to toe, power to power with him, and it makes sense. And it even makes and the fact that Takeshita comes off as a big, powerful dude makes it all the more impressive when Oleg does power moves himself and lifts and does all that stuff. I thought this was remarkable. A remarkable piece of business once again. And the crowd loves Oleg. And I love Oleg. And there's another guy you can count on. There's another guy that you can spring forward who has come so far so quickly. I gave this match 4.5 stars. Absolutely phenomenal match. Phenomenal match. So great. And you should also make time to watch this one too. Like, absolutely make some time to watch this. And after the match, well, Takeshita shakes Oleg Boltek. I called him Boleg. Don't. I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't have called him that. Please don't come after me. Shake Olton's hand. Does Kaneshita. Kaneshita. What is wrong with me? Takeshita. Jesus Christ. And then Ryohei Oiwa comes down and challenges Takeshita to a match for the never open weight title, which I'm all in for. But right now, our boy Oiwa, he hasn't been scoring very high right now in all of these title matches that he's been setting up for himself recently, at least since he came back. Is this like his third? He's challenged for like 3 titles, I think. 2, 3, something like that. The TV title. He challenged for the Never title, the TV title, and didn't he do King of Pro Wrestling too? I think he did all 3. I could be mistaken. So it's like, maybe Takeshita's like, this guy. But that being said, regardless of, stats, this is a tremendous match that I'm super excited to see. I'm jacked for this match. I am super stoked for a Konosuke Takeshita Ryohei Oiwa match. What are we even talking about here? That's just awesome. So yeah, good stuff happening here. Then we had Robbie Eagles and Kosei Fujita, who defeated the duo of Rocky Romero and Yo, the Roppongi Revice. Good little match. First act of the match was very hard hitting, chops, heavy chops on top of that. Spills to the floor. Rocky and Yo have some good offense. Rocky is really good. Rocky is really good at his job, and so is Robbie Eagles. And he's good in the little things. Robbie Eagles is good in the little things to make you understand that this is a fight, that make you believe that this is a fight. He in fact does his incredible springboard super Hurricane Rana. Sorry to say it wasn't a whole Hurricane Rana, just a springboard super Hurricane Rana. Sorry about that. He even he has a scary spot where he catches his leg. He does like a Tope con Hilo, I think. And he overshoots, he goes really far and catches his leg in the rail, and it looked really bad. And he did a great job selling, because I wrote in my notes, he looks legit hurt, but no, he was not. He was back into the ring doing, and there was this long moment where he wasn't involved in the match. It was just Fujita and Rocky, I think. I was like, oh shit, is he really hurt? But no, turns out he wasn't. Disaster kick German suplex combo by TMDK, followed by the Abandon Hope, which is Fujita's finisher for the win. Good stuff. I thought this was a good match. Some good workers, good match. Gets you warmed up. An amuse-bouche. Gets you all ready for all the great stuff coming up. It was a good match. I gave it 3.25 stars. I enjoyed it. After the match, this is where Taiji Ishimori comes out to challenge for the junior titles. Where he announced that his tag team partner is going to be Robbie X, who clearly is going to be coming to Japan for a little tour. And good for him. Good for him. Sanada defeated Taichi. I like the energy in this one. Starts before the bell, and they beat each other up for a long time before the bell actually does get rung. The match officially is under 10 minutes, but it was a little longer than that. And once it gets going, it's hard hitting. A lot of big moves. They're dropping each other on their heads quite a bit. But there's also a lot of shenanigans and cheating with Sanada just, trying to land low blows and trying to fake out the referee and stuff like that. And there's some Ishimori interference. Obviously, this is not to my sensibilities, and I think the match would have benefited with less nonsense. Especially, this really felt like a lot of House of Torture garbage. This really felt like a lot of House of Torture garbage as opposed to the War Dogs. The vibe was a little off on these here. But I still like the match enough. Sanada gets the win with the deadfall. Taichi loses again. Lol. After the match, Ishimori and Sanada threatened to El Kabong our boy Taichi because there's a guitar. They have a guitar. But Yuya Uemura runs in to save the day. So the big return. He seems to be back from injury. Seems to be okay. Taka Michinoku and Taichi embrace with Uemura at the end. So nice little just 4 guys moment without the 4th being Doki, who is injured now. So, you know, they're always cycling out an injured guy in just 4 guys. I forgot to mention, what the fuck was Sonata's coat? The fuck was Sonata's coat? At some point, I rubbed my eyes. I'm like, wait, this is AI. This doesn't exist. This is not possible. Whatever I'm looking at right now is not possible. The fucking speakers on his shoulders. And it looked like it was funky and I liked it. It's different, creative, but I was like, this is not possible. It was AI. Anyway, good match. The Great Okan defeated Shota Umino. I mean, Great Okan here. The story here was Shota Umino is going to get completely dominated by Great Okan. This is exactly what happened, right? Great Okan just in there and he's throwing him around. And Umino's trying to, string offense together and it's not working. And first of all, when he came out, he being Shota, and came to the ring, he attacks Great Okan before the bell and the crowd boos him. And all the offense, whenever Umino would get on offense, he would get booed systematically, right? And Great Okan, he's just throwing him around, doing butterfly suplexes into the rails. He's just completely overpowering him. Umino strings a little bit of offense together. Great Okan muscles out or, gets his win back, whatever the fuck, and ends up landing a dominator for a dominating win. Umino got trounced here, trounced. And then after the match, Great Okan has clippers. He's got a pair of hair clippers, and he's ready to go to town on Shota Umino, but Shota Umino keeps him from doing it, and instead takes the clippers out of Great Okan's hands and shaves his head himself, to much to the delight of the Great Okan. Which goes into a theory that I had where, when I was looking at this match and I was saying to myself, well, this is a match where, Shota Umino, you kind of feel is getting punished. He's kind of being put back in his place after his performance at Wrestle Kingdom with everyone, which everyone considered to be subpar. With Zack Sabre Jr. in the ring telling him, it's like, show some life. You could, not even hiding it, just saying it out loud. Get up, show some life. You're in the Tokyo Dome, right? And I was like, this is a weird match. It's a weird spot, but clearly there's a humbling that happened here. And they're tying it into a story where clearly he's going to be repackaged. He's going to be reinvented. And Walker Stewart on commentary was putting over the idea of him being Umino, having lost everything, having lost Jon Moxley, so on and so forth, and that he's rudderless at this point. So this is clearly what they're doing, right? There's clearly going to be a reinvention for Shota Umino moving forward, which I think will be a good idea. At this point, whatever they're doing, whatever they've been doing with Shota Umino just is not working, so they might as well try something else, right? But listen, as for the match itself, just Great Okan being a beast and swinging a dude around and just doing whatever the hell he wants with it. This was great. Well, yeah, great. We're not, we saw some great matches, but this was a blast. 3.5 stars from me. I thought this was tremendous. Gillo Maloney defeated Shingo Takagi. Big physical fight, of course, as you expected. They're dropping each other with big lariats and German suplex, and then they fight on the floor, and it's all throughout the match, just pummeling each other and just fighting. And I'm like, yes. Yes! Dance, my pretties. Dance for me. You are dancing for me right now. That was tremendous. Such a good spot to put Maloney in, who looks phenomenal. Like, let's be real here. He looks like an absolute beast. I don't know what plans they have for the guy. I don't know what his ceiling might turn out to be. But this move is absolutely the best move for him. Graduating from juniors to heavyweight. And being able to stand up there with Shingo Takagi and have a really, really good match. We're off to a great start. And he won. He being Maloney wins with the Driller Killer, which they already established as a move no one ever kicks out of, like a disaster move, right? So he hits Shingo with that. So, I was wondering what they were going to do exactly with the finish, because they could either go two ways. Of course, have him win, have him lose, but have him win and get a big decisive win over an established star in Shingo, or have him lose and then have to, sort of fight his way back to prove himself and then get the win over Shingo and then lead us to the rubber match kind of thing, which is absolutely in Geto's playbook to do that kind of stuff, right? So I didn't know exactly which way they were going to go with this. Now we know which way they're going with this. Now we know how they're going to. Now that it's like, okay, Drilla Maloney is in for a push. How big, how fast, how strong? Let's stick around and find out. And then we had the opener. I did not watch the pre-show. I apologize. So I have no thoughts on the tag team match that opened. But Hiroshi Tanahashi defeated Tony Makabe. Oh, wait, I gave 3 3/4 stars to Shingo and Drilla, by the way. And Hiroshi Tanahashi versus defeating Togi Makabe. I gave it 3 stars. Good match, if not rough, towards the end. Some miscommunications as well. Here, Tanahashi slipping on the ropes and flubbing the finish, so they all had to do it again. It is what it is, but, it wasn't bad. Good little match nonetheless. And, it's Hiroshi Tanahashi, and he's leaving pro wrestling. 3 stars, it's fine. Togi Makabe he's a New Japan dad. What do you want from me? It's fine. It was fine. What a tremendous show. I cannot recommend it enough. Look, I've already given you my recommendations. Like, if you only have a limited amount of time, and in case you weren't paying attention, let's run them down again. The main event, Hiroki Goto versus Zack Sabre Jr. The co-main event, Gabe Kidd versus Yota Tsuji, and Takeshita versus Bolton. Those are my absolute, make time out of your day 3 matches that you absolutely have to watch. If you have the 3-4 hours in front of you to sit down and watch a professional wrestling match, a show from start to finish, where you will not get bored, where you will not get overwhelmed, and where you will just watch some excellent pro wrestling in a promotion that feels like it's getting its mojo back. There you go. There it is. Because that's the final thought here. Is New Japan back? The strong show they did, Battle in the Valley. Tremendous show. I love that show. Now we go back to Japan and we have ourselves another great show. I'm like, this should have been the vibes for this show, the results for this show, the passion with which I'm speaking about this show as it wraps up. This should have been Wrestle Kingdom. This is how great this show was. Is New Japan back? In the course of the build here on the Road to show, you had some nice little multi-man matches that were legitimately exciting. You had a great main event between El Desperado and Kosei Fujita. You had another really good match. I think it was a main event, right? For the I don't quite remember, but El Fantasma versus Jeff Cobb. And then you have these great angles all throughout. There's something. The vibe is different. The vibe is not the same as it's been for the past couple of years. There's a lot of guys who feel inspired who feel like they're biting into stuff now. Like even the Road to shows are peppered with things that require your attention. Again, I ask the question, is New Japan back? If it's not back yet, it's not far away. And that about does it for another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. Thank you all very much for joining me. Again, one last pitch for a like here on YouTube or a 5-star review, a 5-star rating, whatever kind of love you can show would be tremendous. And I would appreciate it a great deal. And I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode and that you can show it in that way. That would be very appreciated. I would really, really do like that. I will be back on Thursday, tomorrow, for the Dynamite review and back to some streaming as well on the YouTube channel. So if you want to come check that out, that will be tremendous as well. Otherwise, we'll be back next week for another edition of the podcast. So thank you all very much for being here. Go watch some Randy Orton and get back to me. And I'll see you next time.